Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk to Dr. Shameem. So she is a physician. Now, normally when you talk about they're extremely busy, but then I keep seeing her in so many networking events. I'm like, how the heck are you managing it? So I thought, okay, let's talk. Let's figure out like how a busy person like you can manage multiple things so that way people can learn from it. So with that, doctor, kind of share your history, like where you came from. We don't have to talk from when you were born, but from your, basically your physician career, why you got into it to what are you doing now or working towards, essentially.
hmm Well, yes, I'm in a position. I still work full time or nearly full time. And I've been a doctor for about 25 years. And alongside that, I've been a single mother for about 20 years. And I've been, yeah, it's the thing about emergency medicine, I guess the reason I can do the things I'm doing is it's on and off. When you're working, you're completely working. And then you also have days in between where you're not working at all.
Mm,
So there's that advantage. But alongside that, you also have the problem of working night shifts and weekend shifts and holidays. So you have to do everything, obviously, because the emergency room is always open. So
mm,
we have to, somebody has to cover those hours. So that's the good and bad of emergency medicine. I mean, it's a wonderful occupation. I'm really happy that I became an emergency physician and I've enjoyed my job. But the challenge is really the shift work.
mm,
But that's the advantage too. The advantage is the shift work because then you have days where you're working and days when you're not working at all. And when you're not working, you really have no clinical responsibilities. You don't have any patients or anything you have to check. You're not following up on lab work or x-rays or anything like that because you don't have any of your own patients.
mm. Gotcha. Now let's go back to your physician. Like, was this I mean, I guess whenever you decided to be a doctor, I guess, was that the aim? Like you wanted to be a doctor or you kind of went into
Well,
that?
I didn't know there was, as a field. I didn't, when I was about 10 years old when I decided I wanted to be a doctor.
Mhm.
I was in science class or in fourth grade and learning about the human body and things was just very fascinating to me.
Mhm.
And so I decided then that I wanted to become a doctor. But no one in my family was a doctor. So
Mm.
I really didn't have a lot of exposure to medicine as to what kind of, different types of doctors or what people did. So I thought I would be a gynecologist and deliver babies and do those kinds of things. I thought that's what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
And then in my first year of medical school is when I learned about emergency medicine. And I met some doctors who were doing a presentation and I learned about their profession and what their life was like. And that's when I decided that I wanted to do emergency medicine as a career,
Mm.
was during my first year of medical school.
So it is a high pressure, right? Emergency. So is there something in your, I guess, a mindset mentality that kind of attracted you to that, like maybe being calm under the pressure? Is that how you always grew up as? Is that like something from childhood, how you grew up, or is that something you acquired?
I think I don't know. Honestly, I think people who go into emergency medicine probably do like the adrenaline rush and they like to do high intensity critical care and and I think that's probably one of the allures of emergency medicine is that you get to do some really cool things and there's high stakes. But there's also a lot of everyday stuff, people stub their toe or get a paper cut, they come to the emergency room. So it's not it's not always that exciting or that important, but or life threatening. It's just it is what it is. But I don't know. I think the field, you have to be calm under pressure. You really can't get unwound, and lose control in a high pressure situation. So you have to keep your wits about you and you have to do what's required. And you're sort of the leader, you're essentially are the leader when you're in the emergency room because you're usually the only physician there. And so all the nurses, technicians, everybody's looking to you to really set the tone and, say what comes next. So you do have to be comfortable doing that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Great. So let's get, I'll ask you a couple more there before we get into your new, I guess, the one you are currently actively working towards and how it helps. All this helps. What do you do to practice all that, right? The calmness. Is there any practices you do? Is there any books you read? All that to essentially be calm under pressure. And also you mentioned leadership. How do you do that? How do you manage people, nurses, being calm under whatever the panic situation is going on?
I think all things lead back to self-awareness.
Mhm.
And I think that's something I've been very interested in. And I've spent a lot of time and energy, delving into different books and teachings about self-awareness. So I think that's where it really stems from, when because what makes us anxious or fearful or angry? I think understanding what triggers us and why we behave a certain way in certain situations, when we understand that, we can, it actually changes by itself. You don't even have to change it. It's just becoming aware of it. So I think self-awareness is the real foundation of self-improvement or growth as a person, is to really just become more aware of what are your drivers, what are your motivations and fears and things that impact you, and affect your behavior. So so I think that's what I really have spent a lot of time on.
Got you. Tell me, can you share what is the practices you do then?
My
Is
practices
it
are very like non-practice,
so not
because one
still a
thing that
practice?
you have to know, I mean, it's lovely when I hear bloggers or even people that I know that, they meditate every morning or every evening, or they have certain practices or rituals or just some sort of, routines, I guess, more than anything. And I really don't have routines in my life, and somewhat it's my personality, I guess, too, but also because of my schedule, it's very difficult for me to maintain a routine, even like an exercise routine or anything like that is really challenging for me, because every week my schedule is different.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I see it is, life is a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
You can take small moments throughout your life. I mean, you can just be, washing the dishes, or you can be, listening to a patient's heart. And in that few seconds, if you focus on that activity and rest your mind, that's essentially meditation, when we're not wrapped up in our thoughts. So that's kind of how I do it. I mean, I do like in the usually at nighttime, if I'm lying down and going to sleep, I do actually meditate, like sit there and, have a set time and a way of doing things, but I don't really have a routine or a practice. I've followed many different traditions throughout my life. I was born Muslim, and I was very practicing Muslim. I used to cover my hair and pray 5 times a day and do all those good things. And then I've, read the Quran in translation more than once. And then after that, I encountered various different spiritual traditions. And so I explored all of them, just because I tend to allow myself to go where I feel drawn, and so I'll just go down that road for a few years, like, and I go pretty deep, and I'm listening to them all the time or reading those books all the time. And then something else draws my attention, and I go that way, and I go down that road for a few years. But it's not that different after all. Once you explored a few traditions, you realize they're all about the same. They're all leading you to the same place. And where they're really leading you is self-awareness. There's really nothing else. And so I think that's really the ultimate, foundation. It's coming
Yeah,
back home.
that is very true. There are multiple points there. One of the points you made about meditation is very true. I mean, I've been practicing that for 6 year plus years now, but I used to meditate back when I was a child or teenager, I guess. But it is very true. People get caught up in this, okay, you have to do it a certain way, which is BS. No, you can do it multiple ways. Yes, washing dishes can be a meditation. Walking can be a meditation. Whatever you're doing, if you're present, that can be meditation. So it's a great point you made. Perfect point. And then the other point I really like, which, kind of going deep into, I go into deep rabbit holes, But, one of the things, non-spirituality, Carl Jung's book, is a great insight into now how he interprets things is different. But if anybody wants to read that, then he kind of puts together all religions, essentially kind of saying the same thing.
Mhm.
Eventually they're coming to the same point. So that's a great point you made. All right. Now let's shift on to your real estate. What got you into it? What's the goal there for you?
Yeah, great question. Because I honestly, the reason I got into real estate was because I wanted to increase my retirement savings. I looked at my retirement account. I realized I can't retire. And I also realized I have no passive income. All of my income is active. So, you don't have a lot of choices. You have to work as much as you always have, and you have to wait till you get to retirement age, et cetera. And even then, once you get to retirement age, you have enough to really retire. So that's what really hit home, I think around 2021 or so, when I was really getting burned out. I was exhausted and I was also having physical pain. I had plantar fasciitis really bad that year and I couldn't get it healed, and all these things were happening. So I felt like there was a lot of physical stress and emotional stress. And this was post COVID, like after we had been into COVID like good 2 years, almost. So it was all of that was, and then I realized I really couldn't cut back. Even though I did for a time, I had to go back to full-time work.
Mm,
And I just thought, what the heck? Why is this happening? Like, I've made good money all my life. I've put away retirement. And you look at the retirement accounts, those 401ks are growing like at 2% or something. It was just obscene. I was like, wow, like I had no idea. Because, they talk about how the stock market appreciates like 9% per year. That's not really true. At least not. Not in the 401ks for sure. We're lucky if we're getting 5%. And then we're going to pay tax on that income when we do draw it out. So it's like we really aren't growing our money at all. And so we're barely keeping up with inflation, maybe not even that in some years. And I know last year it was really, this past year, the stock market's done really well. But if you average it, I just even checked my own this last a couple few days ago, and it was 5% over the last, 3 to 5 years.
mm,
So I just feel like that's what made me start thinking there's got to be a better way. And I had always been interested in real estate, but I didn't know how to go about it. And I, was always a little afraid, like I didn't know if I could manage that on my own.
mm,
And I thought, let's do some single family homes and get, I had a friend who was doing some Airbnbs.
mm,
So I said, maybe I could try that, get a single family home and run it as an Airbnb, and that could be some passive income. So this was 2021, and of course the prices were really high, and I actually put two offers on I submitted two offers for houses, and they both got rejected, which was interesting because they were overpriced. But that happened, and then I started looking deeper and learned about multifamily, and I realized, it made a lot of sense to me that it's more scalable. So instead of one unit, one residential unit, you could have 10 or 20 or 100. And that sounded like a more workable plan. So I started looking for small multifamily. And then even with that, I started noticing that it was going to be a full-time job.
mm,
Like this is a lot of work for one person, especially if I'm working full time.
mm,
I can't really do property management for, 8 to 10 unit building. I can't be taking on the financial liability of the mortgage and all these kinds of things. So I decided, you know what, I'd rather I learned about syndications and decided to invest in syndications because that way I could do it passively. And yes, the returns are less. Yes, I'm giving up control, but it made sense for my life.
mm,
And I think if you're a busy professional who's making a decent income, but you want to start investing in something that has a better rate of return and can be done passively, then syndications are great. So that's kind of how I got started. And then when I was working with a syndicator, he asked me to raise capital.
mm,
And then he also asked me to they asked me to set up a meetup group for their group,
mm,
their investors. And so that's what I did. I created a meetup group and just like it was literally like nothing. It was like 5 to 10 people maybe. We met, and because I didn't know what to do, I was like, I'm not an event planner. I don't know what you mean, but sure, I'll tell people. And so I just told people, and they came, and that was it. And then the next time, they wanted me to do it monthly. And so when the second time came around, I was like, well, maybe, we could invite doctors.
Mhm.
And so we decided to do it that way. And at that time, I also had another company. I had a telemedicine company that I was trying to get off the ground, which wasn't working. So I had hired an advertising agency for the telemedicine company. So I just asked them to help me with this real estate
Mhm.
networking group that I was organizing. So they were very helpful. And I literally just created the Doctor Investor overnight. Like I just looked for a URL that that I liked.
Mhm.
And this one was available. So I bought that. And then the agency created the website. And then we created an event and we just invited people, and so we did several events that way. And
Mhm.
that got a lot of traction on LinkedIn. People started noticing that, and a lot of sponsors started reaching out to me to say, hey, could you raise capital for us, or would you like to invest, et cetera. So I started meeting a lot of people that way.
Mhm.
And then I just, met the Rostegar property company that we worked with and raised capital for. And
Mhm.
we had to do it through a fund of funds model.
Mhm.
I couldn't be co-GP with them because they don't allow that. So unfortunately, they had a fund administrator. So I got together with the fund administrator and they, helped me set it up. So that turned out to be a great model because I was independent. I wasn't a partner with anyone.
Mhm.
And that actually helped me really kind of refine my own message and my own identity because I don't think it's all about real estate. That's really not what this is about. I think, yes, we invest in real estate and I'm investing in real estate and I do advertise those things, but
Mhm.
I think the real goal is how do we educate people and inform people about
Mhm.
alternative investments? How do we make it safer for them to invest in these kind of opportunities? Because I think there's so many opportunities out there and there's so many syndicators out there. There's
Mhm.
not really a system to vet these opportunities and really get to know these people and develop relationships and make sure that we're investing with the right people.
Mhm.
And so I think that's my main goal is to really facilitate that investment process.
Mhm.
And then also just, it doesn't have to be real estate. It could be something else. Like maybe you want to start your own business. Maybe you want to start a podcast, whatever it is your thing. Like I want people to feel like, hey, I can
Mhm.
do something for myself. I can create something for myself. And so I really believe in the entrepreneurship and investing, whatever it is. I just think we need to think outside the box, think outside of the stock market and think outside of the traditional norms. Like we don't have to be confined to what other people have said we need to do,
Mhm.
but that we can think for ourselves and, create our own path.
That's a great thing. So one of the things is, I think seems like basically you're saying one of the saying about marketing is you're not selling a hammer, you're selling a solution to somebody to hang something. That's what you're selling for. You're not offering them a hammer. You're basically offering them a bait to hang clothes or something. Anyway, now let's swing back to how you're balancing things, right? I know you said, hey, you got on, days off, and all that stuff. How do you delineate? How do you keep that stuff separate? Like when you're on there, but when you're on, you're networking and all that. How do you delineate?
Yeah.
Keep those
Now
things.
there's no off button.
Okay, yeah, exactly. That's my point.
Because before there was at least work and no work. Now there's just work and different kinds of work.
Huh?
So,
Oh,
so yeah, there's not really an off day.
uh,
And that's good and bad. I mean, I think I'm very passionate about what I'm doing and I really enjoy it, and
mhm,
that's good. But it is a tough challenge to balance, my personal time
mhm.
and make sure I'm getting enough rest and make sure I'm, recovering from my shifts and other things that I'm doing. So I'm still learning how to do that.
Got you. What are you currently doing? What are you learning there on how to kind of reset yourself? What are the tips and tricks you learned there?
I haven't.
I got you.
I think it's honestly, I'm still learning how to because my company is so new, right? I mean, we've been in business for about a year,
Hmm.
so this is the real the tough time, right? Where we're still sorting out
Hmm.
what we're doing, how we're doing, and I'm finally getting some of that figured out, like right now.
Hmm.
So yeah, as far as the balance, I don't know that there is one. I just work all the time.
Well,
This is
I
probably
mean,
not good for your podcast now that I think about it.
no, I agree. That depends, right? If you're, I mean, not seem tired. You don't seem tired. I mean, based on my interactions with you, you don't seem like stressed out or anything, right? That's the point. My point was that you don't seem stressed. So what do you do there? Like, do you have any routines? If you don't, it's basically maybe that's your way of being. I mean, some people are naturally like, hey, they can flow through things pretty quickly. Some people need obviously a reset routine or whatever they need to do, right? Everybody is different. There's no same thing for anybody. So I was just curious if you had something that was automatically like, hey, okay, I'm done with this job. Now I got to go to my real estate stuff or whatever I'm going to do, meet people. How is there a transition? If it's not, okay, we'll leave it at that. So so far, what have you learned? I mean, is this now we haven't talked about the goal. You didn't go to the goal. What is the goal there here? It's just like you're going to still work through your retirement, or if you build this enough that, okay, time to quit, you're going to quit ER because it seems like you're passionate about that too. What is the plan there? Is there a plan there, or are you going with the flow right now?
Well, I think I'd like to just work on my own terms. I don't want to, I want to just find that balance. That's the real key is like to be able to work and work as much as I want to rather than as much as I have to. I think has to be you need a side hustle in life. And I know it sounds probably cliche, but I think it's important to, first of all, from your own personal growth, you need to explore alternative ways of doing things, different kinds of hobbies, interests, whatever.
Mhm.
And, don't restrict ourselves to like one job and one income.
Mm,
And so I think there's that piece, that I think is just from a personal development standpoint to diversify
mm,
ourselves.
mm,
And then I think I would still practice medicine a little bit
mhm,
because I don't want to lose touch with where I came from. Like I think it's part of my identity, honestly. And I like other doctors. I like to support them. And I think if I really am committed to supporting other physicians, I have to understand their world.
mm,
And so if I leave that world completely, I feel that I wouldn't be able to relate to them or they wouldn't be able to relate to me
mhm,
as well.
mhm,
So even if I work, 5 days a month, I think I should, I'd like to continue doing that. So
mhm,
I'm, in touch with what's going on in the world of medicine.
mhm,
But I think next year is going to be very different for me. I think I have, I think it's going to be very different from the business standpoint because I have a whole nother campaign coming out.
mhm,
We're going to create an investor club.
mhm,
And the Doctor Investor Club is going to be a platform where investors
mhm,
can meet and develop relationships with sponsors like on an ongoing basis. Like they would not only be making, developing trust and a relationship, but they would also be learning because they would get live calls on this platform with these sponsors on a monthly basis to just explore how the deal is going. What are the strategies? What are the challenges and solutions to those challenges? And just actually, getting real information in real time.
mhm,
And I think having that sort of um, insight into the
mhm,
deal. Like
mhm,
if somebody's developing a building, like if you're actually there from the beginning
mhm,
and you hear about this was a struggle to get the permit, this is the problems we had with the city, this is what happened in this survey, and this is how we solved that problem.
mhm,
And then we had the design problem or the engineering problem. This is what's going on there. So every month you're getting some updates. You're seeing how things actually happen in that world.
mhm,
I think that would be so educational and insightful, and it would help you build trust with that sponsor. You're actually getting to know them.
Mhm.
And I think the hurdle to actually invest with someone would be overcome because right now, what do we have? We get a pitch deck and a webinar, and we're supposed to make a decision that's $50,000. It's worse than arranged marriages.
Sure. Yeah, well, yeah.
Like here's the resume. You know what I mean? So it's like you don't really get to know anybody. How are you supposed to make such an important decision
Mhm.
without getting to know someone and know their business and know their history? And that's what I want to create is a platform that facilitates that so that you don't have a one visit, decision. You get to actually see these people month after month and follow their journey. And then you can invest alongside them if you feel that you can relate to them and you like the way they think.
That's a great way to do it. Education, that's what people forget. Too much pitchy, you know,
Yeah, and
talk
even
about.
educational platforms that exist or coaching programs, they're focused on the theory.
Mhm.
Like here is a lecture on multifamily, and here is a lecture on asset management, and that's what they're doing. But I think you can learn that way perhaps too, and it's not a bad place to start. But the experience of actually
Mhm.
going through those steps in real life is totally different,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So watching that happen in real time, I think will be so much more educational.
No, that's a great point. All right, let's shift to personal level. I'm going to ask you two
Mhm.
questions now, right? One, and probably going to question yourself now. So I'm going to question this. You talked about, being wary of leaving physician because you wouldn't understand physicians if you get out of it. Is that more of more of being attached to wanting to control? Or is that more truly, okay, I do love being a physician. What do you think it is? Is it more you think, okay, if I'm not a physician, people won't, trust me, whatever. Is that more of a self-talk, or you think it's more of, okay, you are passionate about being a physician? What do you think that is?
I mean, I think I mean, it's hard to say right now because I haven't been out of the game to really see. I think I would have to test it out, like leave it for a while. I mean, I could get used to that. At the moment, I'm like exhausted, like if I could take 2 months off, I might never come back. You may never see me again.
There you go.
And
All
that's
right.
possible.
Gotcha.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'll have to see how that actually feels when I do it,
Mhm.
because I agree with you. It could just be, a story that I'm telling myself that this is important when it's not. It's, maybe it doesn't matter. I've practiced retire if I do really well on the business, and but I think there's a level of empathy when you're in the midst of it, and I want to preserve that. I don't want to lose touch with with that community. So there's that piece. I guess I'll have to see if there's another way to maintain that connection without actually working there. Because the reason I say that is because I see people who go into administration,
Mhm.
so they're in healthcare administration, or there might be my boss, there or just people they are doctors and they do practice some. Um, and there's a different level of respect
Mhm.
from the ground troops like myself when we see you in practice, when we see you come down there and actually see patients, versus if you just stay in your ivory towers and tell us how to do things right. It's not it doesn't have the same effect.
It is because why I asked that question is I'm in IT field, right? So I've been in management, managed teams, and all that stuff. Here's what I've learned about myself. I'm very, always been a tech guy, programming, all that stuff. And I was kind of always pushed into programming. And I learned about myself that I'm very good at creating teams and all, not only IT, but one thing I did miss is not being able to control the things I can do, right? I'm relying on other people. That's great, but then you get bored if they're really doing a good job, then you feel like I'm a useless guy here, just telling people what to do, whatever. So anyway, that was one of the reasons I asked that question. just to see like you felt that way?
Yeah, I think because we enjoy that work, right? Like when you get your hands dirty and you're actually in there and you're doing stuff, it is more exciting. You feel much more alive when you get to do those, especially instead of just cerebrally, like kind of organizing things. Like for instance, when I've taught, I used to be an attending physician at Parkland Hospital, and you have to just wait for the resident to do things.
Mhm.
Like they go see the patient, they come back and tell you, hey, this is what's going on. Then they go do the procedure and they come back and tell you, it's like it's quite boring
Yeah.
to be that person who just gets to listen to other people do stuff. And then even when I do cut back, like for instance, where I work, actually I've gone back to the community setting and busier ERs part-time.
Mhm.
But when I wasn't, I kind of shifted to a quieter hospital, and somebody would call me for a job at a busier hospital, I'd get really excited, like, yeah, like that sounds like a lot of fun. So I think there is a natural desire to actually do the work too, so
Yeah, you don't lose that, right? So last question, I mean, before we jump into our last three questions is you said personal development journey that everybody should learn because of the second. So what is one or two lessons you've learned so far in your journey past year?
okay, from the personal development side, you mean?
Personal development side because of the, concentrating on the real estate now. What have you learned either about yourself or other people?
I think what I keep learning.
Okay. Yeah.
This is what
We
happens when
always
you
are
go down
learning.
that path, right? You keep
Yeah, we
learning
always,
the same lessons in 20 ways. Because it's like an onion, you keep peeling the layers and you keep
it's
like, oh my
true.
gosh, there's more. There's more.
Yes, but
So,
say two. Give me two.
yeah. So I think authenticity,
Mhm,
what is authenticity?
mhm,
I think that is something I'm always rediscovering.
mhm,
And even though I feel like I'm very authentic and I have always been, but you realize, especially when you're creating a brand or you're creating a company, anything that's your own,
mhm,
how much you have to be vulnerable,
mhm,
show yourself and share of yourself.
mhm,
And then when you are doing that sharing,
mhm,
where is that coming from?
mhm,
And taking apart all the fears and inhibitions and stories about yourself, and all the masks have to come off because you've got to keep digging deeper
uh-huh,
to tell your story.
uh-huh,
And because that's the only way people are going to relate to you and engage with you is if you're truly vulnerable and sharing authentically.
mhm,
And so that's one thing I've really done a lot of, I think, this past year. Because I mean, think about it. Like, putting my face on the internet is bad enough, like when you're in social media and Facebook and stuff. But now it's like you've got websites and you've got more and more posts and you've got all the stuff going out there. It's overwhelming. You don't really, normally I wouldn't do that much of that, right? So, but it's part of they have to get to know me. People have to know me
mhm,
and keep hearing from me in order to work with me.
mhm,
So that's the business, it's the business of sharing yourself and continuing to be vulnerable and authentic. And yeah. So it keeps evolving because, like, honestly, when I first started this, I was just going to be an owner operator. I was going to buy real estate and operate it, and I was going to figure it out, get a mentor, all that good stuff.
mhm,
Then it became I'm the liaison. And now it's becoming, how do I improve that? Like, how do I actually provide value?
mhm,
And that's what I feel like, creating this online community is going to do is like, so I'm always trying to really discover for myself, like, what am I actually about? What do I actually want to do?
mhm,
And who am I serving? And why am I serving them? What do I want to really provide? And you have to keep looking
mhm.
to discover that. It doesn't happen immediately sometimes.
Awesome. That's a great point. I was good. I was asking two, but this is a great point. We don't need to go to two. And what I can share is you will keep rediscovering those things over and over and over and over again because I've been doing this for 4+ years now. I don't even know. Every time you think you discover, no, it's just a story, right? There's a programming we all go through. Anyway, We can make a whole podcast about that. We won't get into that. So let me get into last three questions for the sake of time. All right. What's the best book or what's your favorite book so far that you have read on? It could be personal development, it could be investment, whatever. It doesn't matter. What's your favorite book? Other than, let's not go to religious because everybody will have different no. We're only talking about business or personal development wise. So, or spiritual, it doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah, well, I've read several more probably on spiritual
Mhm.
stuff than the real estate stuff, but one that kind of merges the two, I'll go with that.
Mhm.
And actually, that's the other interesting thing is when you read about entrepreneurship and things, there is a lot of, you know, a similar theme. Like you have to develop yourself. You have to grow as a human being to be able to do any of this. And so I think one that I started with was Think and Grow Rich.
Mhm.
And it sounds like, my kids, they were like, "Oh, that's such a terrible book. It's just talking about how to get rich." And but the book is actually very deep and it's very good. It's really about how your mind
Mhm.
creates, and it's again, it's about self-awareness and um seeing what's blocking you and how to get over that and how to create and so I liked that book a lot because I recently was reading it again
Mhm.
or hearing it. It's like an audiobook on my phone.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's a lot of books. I wish I had prepared with the list of books,
No,
but
we're
yeah,
only talking about one book, right? We have to talk
but
one
we'll
book.
go with that one. That's
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
one.
Just go with that one because my favorite book is, they're like I'm obviously reading book almost every one every week, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, no, that I would go with that. Same thing for me, but there's actually the real actual origin of that book called Law of Success. We'll talk about it later. I'll tell you later about it. All right.
Okay.
Second question. What inspires you to get up and do what you're doing every day?
The people I serve.
Awesome. Perfect. All
Yeah.
right. That's a short enough answer.
Short and
What's the
sweet.
one tip that has helped you? Professional, personal, this doesn't matter. Spiritual, it doesn't matter. What's the one tip that you would like to share with others that that has helped you?
The one tip. I'm blank. I don't know that I have one tip.
You want me
Never
to?
give up. Let's
Yeah, there
just
you go. Okay, there,
never
never
give
go.
up.
But
Keep
you know,
trying.
maybe that thing you shared about authentic, right? Maybe, hey,
Yeah. Being authentic. That's not easy. Yeah. But you have
yeah,
to keep trying.
yeah, there you go. I mean, that could be it. I mean, the thing you learn, that might be the tip too, right? So anyway, I felt that was a great tip. So anyway, all right, awesome. Doctor, well, I'll be posting all Dr. Shameem's whatever website. She has a podcast, great podcast. Listen to her, YouTube channel, all that stuff. I'll be sharing with the clips and the YouTube podcast I'll be sharing. So
Awesome.
reach
Thank
out to
you.
her. She's an awesome person to talk to, fun person to talk to, by the way. Not only awesome, but fun person to talk to. So again, thanks for taking the time, doctor, on your busy
You're
time.
welcome. Anytime.